Welcome, everyone, to join us today on our webcast exploring Microsoft Copilot for smarter workflows. We're going to walk through what Copilot is, how we go about accessing it, how it protects our data, and most importantly, how we can use it in everyday real work. Today, we're going to move pretty quickly. We've got lots of exciting things to talk about, and it's going to be a very hands-on session today as well. Just a heads up, we are recording the session today. However, we will automatically generate the link. It will not work after this meeting. So with that said, we will be sharing the recording though and the slides for anyone interested after our time is done today. Very briefly, my name is Edgar Watring. I'm a learning strategist from Planet Technologies. I'm part of the Evolve 365 team. I've had the privilege of helping many organizations work with learning systems related to the rollout of Copilot successfully, and it can feel overwhelming when it's time for us to sort of learn a new tool and then incorporate it into our daily workflows. But our goal today is really to help sort of simplify that process and give us some real examples of prompts and AI related experiences through Copilot that we can start to use right away. I'll note as well that chat is also open during our time today as well. So please, as those questions arise, feel free to put them into chat. I'm going to pause a few times throughout our session today to get a look at chat, address those questions, or maybe revisit those steps we need to get another look at. And then we'll save a few minutes at the end of our session today to address any other sort of remaining questions regarding everything about Copilot. What is on our agenda today? Very briefly, we're going to start with an overview of Copilot, how we would go about accessing it. We're going to get a look at some prompting strategies, followed by some real-world demonstrations. We'll also be providing some tips and tricks, and then again, we'll sort of round things out today with a brief Q&A session. But before we start to really talk about Copilot and how we go about working with it, we first want to be focused upon safety. There's a lot of hype and buzz, of course, surrounding the topic of AI right now, and the generative tools that are available on the market are incredibly popular. They enable us to do a lot of amazing things. These would be things like summarizing lengthy documents, creating new professional content for our teams and our customers. They can support us across almost every step of our existing workflows. They provide assistance, insights, and help us with rephrasing and even recreating content. We do want to emphasize, though, the importance of only using approved AI services. Because of how many of these generative AI tools function and grow their knowledge, there is a real risk of unintentionally exposing personal or confidential data if we're not mindful of these types of things. The good news with Copilot, though, is that as we are then signed into our work credentials, it helps ensure that data integrity applies using the same enterprise-grade data protections that we're already used to working with across our other Microsoft 365 applications. The bottom line here is that many AI tools online do not protect our company's data. When we use Copilot with our work account, those enterprise data protections apply immediately. This means that our data stays within our organization and it's not used to train the AI models. Speaking generally, though, we want to note a couple distinctions, characteristics of these AI large language models. The first that we'll want to point out is something that we call hallucinations. This is a term that we use to describe an AI response that may sound very convincing, but could be incorrect or inaccurate. Why do hallucinations arise? AI is a generative tool. Its responses are based on patterns regarding what it's learned and the data that it's trained on. Sometimes AI pulls together what it thinks we might want, but it may not fully align with the level of accuracy that we're expecting. This is why we are still a critical part of this AI process. We are the expert in our respective fields. We understand the scope and the subject matter. So it's always important to double check and validate what's being created as we work with AI systems. We should always think of Copilot as a helpful assistant, but not a definitive source of truth. We'll always want to validate those outputs. And the other characteristic that's a part of working with these AI systems is change. We've probably noticed this already, but AI, more than any of our other software or tools, is evolving very quickly. It's consistently improving, and today's experience will be the least advanced version that we'll ever use. Because of that, we need to maintain a growth mindset and be willing to adapt as new features are provided and these changes are introduced. We're going to see this constantly, so we'll want to be patient with the technology and be patient with ourselves as we're working with it. It's completely normal for parts of this learning journey to feel a little stressful at times. We also hope, though, that today that we understand that Microsoft and its developers behind the scenes do take our feedback seriously, and they're constantly advancing these tools to better meet our needs. When we talk about our data, I know that for many of us, this is a significant area of concern. We do want to emphasize that when we are signed into Microsoft 365 with our organization's credentials, we automatically receive enterprise data protections. There are a few key indicators that help us recognize that this protection is active. And during our conversations today, we'll actually ensure that we're signed in and that those data protections are in place. Some conversations may be saved in a personal history, so we can reference work that we've already done. But this access is personal and exclusive to us. Our data is not being used to train the underlying AI model or contribute to the development of Copilot itself. In other words, that data stays with us and within our organization. This allows us to confidently use Copilot with sensitive data or topics and ultimately get the most value that we can and efficiency out of working with Copilot. Before we dive in deeper, minding some of these environment related topics, we'll want to sort of bear in mind the type of environment that we're most likely working in with Microsoft 365. If our organization is a commercial business, this could be related to industries like retail, healthcare, or finance. We're almost certainly hosting our Microsoft experience in the enterprise or commercial cloud. For example, private sector, higher education, or most non-regulated organizations, this is almost certainly the cloud that we're working in. Just to provide a bit of contrast for government agencies or contractors, though, there may be some differences in the feature availability due to specific security requirements. Our time today, though, is going to be spent talking about and demonstrating the Copilot experience in that enterprise, or what we also call commercial experience. How do we go about accessing Copilot when we're ready to kind of see what it's all about? Well, there's a couple different ways, steps, I should say, that we'll want to take to go about accessing Copilot. We'll want to, again, make sure that we're signing in with our work account. We'll want to navigate to, and I'm going to just drop this URL here in our chat if you want to kind of follow along as we talk about Copilot today. We'll want to navigate to that URL. Once again, it's the same place that we would go in our web browser to sign into Microsoft 365. And from there, we should be, as long as our policies and our organizations permit it, access Copilot Chat. We'll also want to ensure, and we're kind of highlighting this over here, way over here on the right in our screen cap here, we'll want to ensure that we're signed in with our work account. To check, we should see that little shield with the green outline. And again, that lets us know that those enterprise grade data protections are in place. Copilot Chat introduces a very new and different type of workflow. Many of us are, of course, used to working with intelligent systems online historically. These might be things like a search engine. When we're really trying to sort of take that big, complicated thought and then shrink it down into 4 or 5 keywords. As we've historically worked with search engines, this approach may have worked well. when we're, again, seeking that bit of information based upon an idea or a notion or a phrase or a thought. But with Copilot Chat, though, our mindset needs to shift. We can add more context and more detail to that conversation. It actually is going to work better when we take that conversational approach to working with Microsoft Copilot. This allows us to ask questions, make specific requests, and start creating content that's tailored to what we're actively working on. As we work with Copilot, this opens the door to deeper explanations and better insights. Maybe we're trying to learn a new tool, or we're trying to understand a new concept. All of that becomes much more accessible through this conversational style of engagement. As we mentioned, there are several iterations of AI technology available online. But among the many vendors that are out there, why would we want to work with Microsoft Copilot? Copilot connects us with the most powerful AI models available today and the ability to then leverage them within our secure environment. It's still using those highly trained and well-developed tools, but integrating them directly into the tools and the content we're already working with. Copilot not only provides responses, but it also cites its sources. This added transparency supplies us with additional insight and verifiable alternate resources. Every once in a while, if I don't see that come through automatically, it's very easy to prompt Copilot and say, hey, Copilot, cite the sources. Where are you getting this information from to verify what it's providing me? With Copilot, there's also no knowledge cutoff when Copilot has access to search the web. We do want to note this in particular, though, because some organizations will disable this feature. So we may be only working with the foundational model information, which is still very powerful, but it may not see immediate updates. But if web access is enabled in our environment as we're working with Copilot, Copilot is not going to be limited to the information upon which it was originally developed. It can perform real-time web searches and then bring in more current, up-to-date information. This can be especially helpful when we're researching new topics or we're looking for the latest details. And again, to point it out, Copilot will not share or use our prompts or files to train those AI models. All that data remains private to our organization. The Copilot chat history is stored securely in our Microsoft 365 account. This is encrypted and access controlled and is fully under our organization's retention control, like an email or a Teams chat we might have in Microsoft 365. No one at Microsoft or OpenAI can see it, and it's not used to then improve the AI model. Again, we'll want to look for that little shield. That ensures us that those enterprise data protections are in place, and the system is then honoring our organization's policy, security, and any compliance-related details. What sort of things should we be aware of as we begin to work with Copilot? I'm not going to talk through all of these in great detail because kind of harkening back to some of those things that we noted earlier about AI and the technology sort of perpetually evolving. Believe it or not, this screen cap actually needs to be updated as well. But many of the major features here, though, again, we do want to briefly point out, and they're most definitely going to be a part of our demo that we're going to jump into in just a moment here. A couple that I would like to point out. When we're ready to start that new chat, in that menu on the left, we'll see the ability then to begin that new chat with Microsoft Copilot. We also have had historically the capability with that new chat button that we also see in the upper right corner. When we're ready to begin that discussion with Copilot, maybe we've got that idea, we're seeking those insights. Maybe we need a recommendation from Copilot based upon its knowledge base. Right there in the center of our Copilot chat is that input or prompt text box. That's where we'll enter that prompt, that question, that inquiry, that request that we're making of Copilot. We also have access to suggested prompts as well. If we're new to Copilot, And maybe we're not able to quite summon an idea yet, but we want to see what that prompting experience and the types of things that Copilot can provide us are all about. We can look to those suggested prompts, click on one of those prompts to have it auto-populate in that input box, and then see what kind of things Copilot can do for us. We can then start that conversation with Microsoft Copilot. Very briefly, again, how do we go about getting started? It's so simple. We'll want to sign in to Microsoft 365 in our browser. We'll want to navigate over to Copilot and start that new chat. Simply enter that prompt. It can be detailed, it can be simple. We'll want to then send that prompt to Copilot. Of course, it's important always as Copilot is providing its response, especially if we're wanting to take that response from Copilot and utilize it or repurpose it in any kind of a formal setting, a communication or information that we'll be relaying to coworkers or to customers. We'll want to verify those sources where at all possible. And then if we're not done with that conversation yet, maybe we're seeking additional information. Maybe we need to really just provide some additional nuance to that intended goal that we're seeking with Copilot. We want to continue that conversation the same way that you would have a conversation or engage a colleague or a customer. We'll have that same experience as we're working with Copilot. With all of that said, though, let's jump into our demo environment. Let's take a quick tour of what we can expect as we begin to work with Copilot through our browser. And then actually, let's provide a prompt or two just to see what types of things Copilot can do for us. I'm going to switch over to my demo environment here. And let me get back over here on the upper left. So I dropped that URL earlier in our chat. If you're wanting to kind of follow along and access Copilot and see what it can do for you as we're sort of watching what's happening here, again, please feel free to follow along. Once again, though, let's take a tour. And I'll note as well that you'll have your best experience with Copilot, generally speaking, when you're signed into Microsoft 365 through Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome. I happen to be signed in through Edge here. Let's take that quick tour. Over on the left there, at the very top, we see that new chat when we're ready to kind of change the subject, so to speak. We're wanting to discuss something new, or maybe we've been working with some other Microsoft 365 resources through our browser. We'll want to navigate to the upper left-hand corner and click that new chat button. We're going to kind of jump around a little bit. We're going to sort of work our way down here. We'll revisit a couple of these a little bit later. You'll see here in my left rail, among the other things I have access to, I've got access to all of my historical chats that I've had with Microsoft Copilot. These chats go, well, way back for me, based upon my organization's policies. I can revisit any of these discussions at any point, get another look at the types of information that Copilot has provided me, or I can just resume the conversation with Copilot wherever I left off. Let's scroll down just a little bit more because what I want to get to at the moment is this all chats. Rather than sort of just scroll through those in that left rail, I can scroll down here to get a little bit of a better idea what that chat was all about, in addition to when that chat last occurred. A feature I actually use all the time as well because I've got dozens and dozens of historical chats in my chat history with Copilot, and somewhat regularly I have to go back and revisit all of those. We'll want to look for that search window at the top. We can take a search term, plug that into search. Oh, nothing regarding Teams. All right. How about anything regarding Planner? All right. Let's try this one more time. Surely we mentioned Copilot in one. Oh, excellent. All right. In one of our past discussions here, Copilot was a term, was a word. We can include phrases as well, based upon some information that I provided Copilot or a response that it provided me. It's just that much quicker way to get access to that previous conversation. We could then revisit that conversation as well. And once again, just kind of continue that discussion right where we left off, regardless of how old the conversation is. For the moment, I'm going to scroll back up here to the top, up here to new chat. A couple other things I wanted to point out briefly. Over here on the right, there is that little shield. It's kind of small. Let me zoom in a bit here just to make sure it's nice and clear, and then we'll kind of revert our settings here in just a moment. We're going to want to look for that little shield. This lets us know that we're signed in with our work account and that those enterprise data protections are in place. Again, super important because many of those publicly available AI tools do not protect our information in the way that Copilot does. This includes the information that we're sending to Copilot, and then the types of responses then that is providing us based upon that prompt. Zoom back out here. One other thing I wanted to point out for now is, well, this very recently changed. If we're new to Copilot, we're not exactly sure how to go about beginning to work with it, or we'd like Copilot to just kind of maybe provide us a suggestion just to kind of see what it can do. We'll want to navigate down here beneath that text or input prompt box, and we'll want to look for the three dots, that ellipsis. When we click on that, that's then going to bring up what Copilot previously called the prompt gallery, but I believe it's now calling the prompt lab. So again, if we're new to Copilot, not exactly sure what it can do for us, and we want to kind of test drive it maybe a little bit before we provide our own prompt, we can navigate to that prompt lab. In my menu on the left here, lots of different topics I can choose from to then begin working with Copilot. As I click that suggested prompt, it automatically populates that here in my input or my prompt box. And I can just hit enter on my keyboard, or I'm just going to click this little circle here with the arrow. Let's see what Copilot can do for us here. As Copilot provides its response is then going to be included in that chat history. I can go back and revisit as well. Let's actually provide our own prompt, though, to see what Copilot can do for us. It's still thinking. I'm just going to scroll down here through the response it's provided us. We'll be providing several prompts today as we sort of demonstrate what Copilot can do. So for now, I'm just going to kind of scroll down here, let Copilot finish its reply. And for now, again, to the upper left-hand corner, let's start a new chat. Let's change the subject, so to speak. And not that you have to work with this prompt. I'm actually going to paste this prompt in our chat window here. If you wanted to input this prompt in your experience with Copilot as you're sort of following along. Copilot, I would like you to brainstorm some fun professional mascot ideas. It's part of an IT modernization program. We would like all of these ideas kind of organized in the form of a table. Make sure that we include a name and a mission statement based upon the values of teamwork and innovation. What can you do for us, Copilot? Let's see. Based upon all of those elements that are a part of our prompt, we stated our goal. We informed Copilot regarding the format in which we would like that output, most notably a table here. And then the fact that we wanted those mission statements included for each one of those. And then we provided kind of a very sort of quick pair of values as a part of that output. Imagine all the time Copilot has saved for us here with that brainstorming it's provided us. Let's provide one more response. What's great about Copilot, again, is as it provides its response, we've now initiated a conversation. And so we can have this iterative type of experience in the same way that we would reply to a coworker, they would reply to us, and we would have that ongoing dialogue established. We're going to do the same thing with Copilot. Because Copilot builds on the conversation without requiring any additional context, let's go ahead and then reply and say, hey, let's put together a list of taglines based upon the third idea that you provided us here based on our original prompt. Cloudy the Connector was the third in that list, in that table there, of potential IT mascots for our modernization program. And now we very quickly brainstorm some great taglines that can be included, either as a part of sort of user-aimed messaging, minding our audience, or other helpful sort of assets that are going to be a critical part of our IT modernization process. No questions in the chat so far. Once again, if you do have any questions today, please feel free to drop them into chat. I am going to keep an eye on chat as we continue to talk about Copilot. Now, we've briefly noted some things regarding how we go about getting started with Copilot, where we can find it, all of the data protections that are in place. But let's talk a little bit more, though, about how to effectively engage with Copilot. We may hear a term. It's certainly going to come up today as we talk about Copilot, and chances are it's going to be a term that you will see as you use Copilot as well, and that is context engineering. And it's really just a fancy term for the mindset that we should take on as we are providing prompts to Copilot. We should think about Copilot as an overly eager intern that doesn't want to pester us with questions, but also won't return empty-handed anytime we make that request. When we approach AI as if it's a new employee or a new hire, it changes our expectations. We wouldn't assume that a person already has historical context regarding our projects or an inherent understanding of our organizational folder structures or ways of working. When we keep that mindset in mind, working with Copilot, it's going to influence the types of information that we provide. We'll want to make sure that Copilot has everything that it needs to then provide us what we're looking for and then do its job well. This means the sharing of relevant background details regarding what we're trying to achieve, providing clear instructions to Copilot. Sometimes we're going to need to explain that task. We'll want to define the expected output format. And in some situations, maybe even set boundaries that Copilot should stay in as it's formulating and then providing us its response. All of this becomes a mindset then that we'll want to bring into that prompting experience, and it will make a noticeable difference in the quality of the results that we get back. How can we kind of summarize this? If our instructions wouldn't assist a colleague that we're working with successfully in completing a task, then chances are it's not going to be able then to provide us any meaningful responses as we're working with Copilot. So what would make a effective prompt? Well, at a simple level, it's something that's specific and detailed. Personally, I found that using full sentences and an instructional format is especially helpful, along with notes regarding things like tone, purpose, and the preferred format that I'm seeking. On screen here, we'll see this example. Over on the left, we've got an example here. Recap the findings of the article I've copied below. So this is the idea that we're then including a document as a part of that prompting process. We'll want to note those top 3 concerns. And then we're also prompting Copilot regarding the format in which we're seeking, right? We want that response to be in the form of a couple paragraphs, and we want to make sure that we have that professional tone in the response that is providing. And then over on the right, we've got really kind of the same prompt, but with none of the specifications that have been included in the right. It's vague. It's not necessarily wrong per se to provide this kind of a prompt, but chances are, because we're leaving out some of that key context, we're a lot less likely to get our desired results. Again, there's no right or wrong way to start that conversation. It truly is an iterative experience where we're providing a prompt, Copilot responds, and then we're sort of continuing that conversation. But with the idea that we want to be effective in our prompting and then hopefully give Copilot everything it needs, we're going to just that much more quickly reach our intended goal if we can provide everything that Copilot needs. So with that said, how do we bring this all together? A moment ago, we noted we can make those requests, we can revisit and then readjust that prompt in a flowing conversation, but we really are trying to be effective and simply get things done. So what does an effective prompt look like? What sort of parts are present? Here are some things I would recommend based on a lot of the successes that I've had. The first thing that we noted earlier is that we should provide the AI a persona from which to work. Is it approaching the task like an expert scientist in a specific field? Or maybe instead, should it assume the persona of a coach? Or maybe even a new hire that may not be completely familiar with all of our internal jargon? That choice alone can significantly change how that task is approached and the type of output that we get from Copilot. The next element, and this may seem obvious, is really just the task itself. This is where we clearly state the expectation for that outcome. Are we asking for a summary? Are we looking for answers regarding a specific question? Are we trying to extract particular details? We'll want to be specific what we're expecting because that, of course, is going to make a huge difference in the response we get from Copilot. Format is closely related to the task, but it's not automatically understood. In some cases, it can maybe be assumed. Because of that, we definitely recommend being very clear in the format that we expect back from Copilot. Are we working with Copilot to create an email or a report or a bullet point list or table? Clearly defining the format is going to help ensure that that final result is something we can use right away. Another important consideration, somewhat related to that persona we noted a moment ago, is going to be the audience. Sometimes that output we're seeking from Copilot is only intended for us, and that's fine. But other times we may be creating something for a leadership team or a highly technical audience, among others. Different audiences require different language, level of complexity, and even in some cases, different lengths of output. And finally, we don't want to forget the tone. Copilot can suggest tone adjustments. Many real-world scenarios require more nuanced combinations. We might need something that's professional and direct, or there could be situations in which we need something that's maybe more empathetic or supportive. We should be specific regarding the tone because, again, this is going to help ensure that that messaging or that information is accessible and it lands accurately with our audience. When we bring all of these elements together, our prompt might actually kind of look something like this. We can bear in mind a specific persona, complete a clearly defined task, include the format of the output as something like a PowerPoint presentation. Even then, we may still realize that there's more information to share with Copilot. And so, again, this prompt is really just a starting point. We'll want to take this approach to enable us to sort of experiment and iterate with Copilot. We won't be able to cover, of course, every possible scenario today, but this provides us with a strong place to start. So just as an example, we'll see here we've kind of filled in those blanks. And actually, let me go ahead and take this little formula of sorts, this prompt equation, and I'm going to actually drop this into our chat as well. This enables us to provide all of those elements that Copilot needs to be successful or hopefully start us down the road to success. So again, as an example here, that persona is as a brand manager. We're informing Copilot regarding what we want to get accomplished. We want to build that strategy plan. This is going to be delivered, this response that Copilot provides us in the form of a presentation. Who are we going to be providing this messaging or this information to? It's going to be a group of young entrepreneurs that have an interest in marketing. And then what sort of tone should we provide? We want to make sure that it's creative and motivational in its tone. With all of these elements together now, Copilot is able to provide us a meaningful response, or it gets, at least again, get us that much closer to our intended goal. We don't have the time today, of course, to work through all of these examples, but these provide us with some great scenarios or examples of the types of things that we can do with Copilot. We can draft internal communications. We can help put together the outline for a workshop. Number 7 is one I find myself in regularly. I'm encountering language that's either complex or I'm seeing terms or phrases that I don't quite understand. Copilot can become our teacher in many cases as well. It can help us adjust that language, provide those helpful insights to make a topic or a bit of information a bit more accessible or understandable. With that, though, What other types of things can Copilot do for us? Let's jump back to our demo environment. Let's revisit Copilot and see how we can make the best use of that prompting experience. To the upper left-hand corner, let's start that new conversation with Copilot. We're going to click on New Chat here. And we're going to break the rules a little bit in so much that we just talked about how important it is to provide meaning and detail to Copilot, but we are going to very intentionally start off with a vague prompt. Very simply, we are saying, Copilot, help us get started. Maybe we're not familiar with Copilot and we want to see what it's all about. Very simply, Copilot, help us get started with Copilot. Copilot gives us a quick idea of sort of where it's all about, how we could potentially use Copilot as well. It's continuing to think as I sort of scroll down here. You'll notice that I've got this little stop button as well. Maybe if I'm in a hurry or it's not being quite as quick as I would hope it would be, we could then stop Copilot from responding and then provide a subsequent prompt. Copilot's moving nice and fast, being very efficient today, though. I'm just going to kind of scroll down here to the bottom. And again, as we noted, this prompt was very vague, right? Let's see if we can't maybe be a bit more specific here. We're going to continue the conversation with Copilot rather than start over, rather than revisit our prompt and then include all of those elements in that initial prompt. Let's see if we can't provide some of that additional context here. Because Copilot does remember the previous information that we've provided, it's going to then base its response on all of the information that's already a part of that conversation. So we're getting started with Copilot here, but we're going to say, Copilot, let's rewrite that request. Let's think about these specific roles as maybe they're beginning their learning journey with Copilot. Let's send that prompt. We're continuing that conversation with Microsoft Copilot. So if we're working with, or maybe we are taking the approach of an executive sponsor, a frontline employee, or a help desk analyst, what things should they maybe know as they're beginning to use Microsoft Copilot? Those different perspectives, of course, can make a huge difference in the type of response that Copilot then provides us. Having that perspective, that persona, really is, again, going to help guide Copilot where it needs to go, where we're intending to head to achieve that output success. What's great as well is that Copilot then says, hey, I can assist you in other ways as well if you're not quite sure where to go or you're looking to build additional content. I am going to provide one more prompt, though, as a part of our conversation here. I like where we're headed based upon these personas and their introduction to Copilot as a resource. But let's just say, hey, for each one of these roles that we've specified, let's create a goal, one constraint, and then how we would go about understanding success working with Copilot. It's maintaining the details based upon our original prompt, those personas that we included in our second part of the conversation. And now, based upon this third directive that we've provided Copilot, there's that nice simple breakdown, right? What we're trying to get accomplished, things that perhaps maybe could affect our experience with Copilot, and then how are we going to go about understanding success based upon each one of these roles. So far our prompts that we've provided with Copilot have been relatively simple. Let's see if we can't provide Copilot with a bit more of a nuanced or complex scenario here. So once again, back to the upper left-hand corner, we're going to click New Chat to kind of reset things, start a new topic, new conversation with Copilot. And with this prompt here, we're going to assume that we are an IT director implementing a new BYOD, so a new bring your own device policy in our organization. Of course, this can provide challenges to many organizations as folks have their own things like mobile devices that they're wanting to include as a part of their work experience. So based upon that situation, we're going to tell Copilot, all right, Copilot, assume that you, Copilot, are an IT director you're familiar with the matter of cybersecurity, we're wanting to create a new policy for our organization. We do want to allow employees to use these personal devices for work matters, but of course, it's critical that things are secure and compliant with our company standards. Help us draft a policy that includes sections on, and we're being very specific here, right, regarding eligibility, security, and acceptable use. Help us out, Copilot. How can you provide us with some critical assistance? Based upon all of the criteria that we've included in that prompt, Copilot then provides its response. Of course, don't really have time to read through all of this here, but let's just go ahead and scroll down. This makes a phenomenal first draft for this policy that we're building. And because we included the persona, what we wanted to accomplish, the audience for which this messaging is going to be intended, and sort of the framework of what we were really seeking to be included in this messaging, Copilot takes all of those details into consideration and builds a really strong first draft that we can work with now. The idea that we're then going to take this content, continue to refine it. As we noted earlier, of course, there's always that potential for perhaps errant information or outdated information. So we, of course, should always read through that response before we take that information and then include it in any sort of a formal setting or context. Once again, Copilot providing us with some helpful assistance here. Where could we potentially go as we're continuing to work with this information? It can continue to sort of shape that messaging based upon the original prompt and with the understanding of that context, potential directions that we could head. We could take this information and then create some entirely new content, including all of those helpful details, right? But then perhaps put together, based upon Copilot's suggestion, a user agreement form. Or we could even customize it. If we knew that we were working with a very specific type of environment based upon the framework and many of the other sort of common details that would go along with that environment, we could specify those as a part of this conversation as well. Let's continue this conversation for now, though, and see what sort of further refinements Copilot can provide us. I'm going to copy and paste another prompt here that's going to be a part of this cybersecurity policy that we're putting together here. Let's include some additional information that's going to be a part of this policy that we're building regarding limitations and support, and just very, very clear messaging to the employees, sort of what's going to be expected of them or the responsibilities that they're going to have as they now include these personal devices as they work with work-related resources. So Copilot lets us know, hey, I already provided you some policy information, but we're going to really laser focus here on these matters regarding support limitations and user responsibilities as a part of it as well. I love the fact, too, that not only has Copilot provided me the information that I'm seeking here, but it's got things organized here. We've got things in bullet points. This helps us just to ensure that this content is clear and concise and accurate. Let's scroll down a bit further here. From here, a few different ways that we could continue to work with this information. I could potentially copy this response if I wanted to then take this content and paste it into something like a Microsoft Word document or some other sort of file format. We could also click on this more options as well. And as I click on this more options as well, I've got a few different things that I can do with this response. We noted a moment ago that potentially I could take this information, copy it into my Windows clipboard, and paste it into an email, paste it into a Word document or some other type of file format. But what's really great, an additional, I think, amazing feature of the Copilot Chat experience is going to be the ability to, once again, from that ellipsis, click that and then edit in what we call Copilot pages. So what I'd like to do is then take this response, all of this helpful output from Copilot, and then let's add it to a new page. Now you may say, what exactly is a Copilot page? Copilot pages is going to be a part of our Copilot chat experience. It basically enables us to take that output from Copilot and then to really begin to build a living document. So while again, we could take that output and then paste it into some other file format, if I really want to just sort of continue to maintain my workflow within Copilot Chat, I could then include it as a part of a page. Let's scroll back up just so we can get to the very beginning of this document here. And again, what I've got here is something in the form of a living document that I can begin to work with. I can make edits with, and I can actually share with my colleagues as well. So if I found an output that's particularly helpful for Microsoft Copilot, I could convert that output into a page. I could then jump into that page, make edits to it, somewhat in the same way that we would with a Microsoft Word document. Or I could share it if my organization's policies permitted it. I could share it then with a colleague. They could then sign into Copilot online the same way that we are, navigate over to the library. And from our library in Microsoft Copilot, this is where we can get access to our pages. In the same way that we can revisit our Copilot chats and review the history regarding our chats, we can do the same thing with pages as well. Let's open a previous page that we've had. There's that living document there that I can continue to make edits to. What's great as well is while I can sort of treat this page as a document, again, share this page with my colleagues. I could actually, if we look to the upper left-hand corner here, I've got the capability then to revisit my chat that I'm currently engaged in. I could either start a new chat, and then maybe as I start that new chat, I could then provide additional information and then include that chat information or really any kind of chat information in that page. And so I can kind of work at the same time with the page, with the chat, include that information in the page, and then anybody that has access to the page, anyone in my organization with whom I've shared that page, as I include that information, they can continue to work with that page as a living document, and then any sort of additions I make to that document are going to be accessible to them as well. Oh, thank you so much. Really appreciate the response there in chat. Again, we are kind of nearing the top of the hour, but very briefly, a couple other things though. I did want to note, once again, let's just jump back to that library for the moment. Let's revisit that page that we were just looking at a moment ago. Looks like historically we were looking for information potentially regarding some tips regarding maybe a LinkedIn post. Let's just say, what types of things should I avoid including in a LinkedIn post? Of course, we're always wanting to make sure that any information or details that we include as a part of our LinkedIn experience, chances are take a professional or they're related to some sort of a professional detail. What might be some things though that we should avoid regarding a LinkedIn post? Now, I wasn't particularly specific here, so I'm interested to see what Copilot tells us regarding things like information or messaging, any of these types of things as well. Let me scroll back up. So again, having now included that related matter in chat, and then because we've got that page open, it then takes its response and then includes it here in that page, in that living document that we noted a moment ago. So we've got some great ideas regarding the types of things that should be a part of a LinkedIn post and maybe some things that we should avoid as well. They're all included here in my page. All of those changes are being automatically saved for me. At any point, we could close that page. Of course, we could always revisit that chat, that new chat that we just started, or back to that library if we needed to get access to that page in its current state. One other item I did want to point out regarding the types of things that we can do with Microsoft Copilot to the upper left-hand corner. Let's start that new chat. We also have the capability, I just wanted to point out as well, to also include files as a part of our prompting process. So what's really great about doing this, and again, this kind of harkens back to what we noted about those data protections earlier, as we're providing those prompts to Copilot, as Copilot is responding to us, all of that information stays private within the boundaries of our organization's Microsoft 365 tenant, and the same goes for any information that we upload to Copilot as well. Now, just to bring that balance there, of course, I would recommend avoiding uploading any kind of information that might be sensitive. As always, of course, anytime that we're working with Copilot, we should be mindful of our organization's policies and ensure that we're following those. The same way that we would follow those IT policies if we were working with things like file storage or email or any other type of a digital or IT or online resource. Want to be mindful, of course, of those same types of things as we're working with Microsoft Copilot. So from here, we could actually upload new content. And as we then include that content, then we could then provide that prompt and say, hey, Copilot, provide me a summary of this document. Help me rewrite this document. Help me adjust the tone of this document. Copilot, I'm creating an entirely new document with completely distinct messaging, but I want to draw on some of the formatting cues that are a part of this document. Copilot is not only going to take into consideration the details that we're including in our prompt, but then any of the files that are a part of that prompt as well. This is what we call a multimodal prompt. It's a prompt in which we're not only providing a text request or an inquiry to Copilot, but we're then drawing upon other types of information as well as a part of that prompt, a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet. There are several file types that are supported by Microsoft Copilot Chat as a part of that prompting experience. All right, folks. Very briefly, we noted a couple of these earlier. Again, we should be aware, while AI is amazing, and Copilot is no exception to that, AI models can produce hallucinations. This is where they generate fabricated or incorrect information that may seem or sound very factual. AI language models do not retrieve verified data. They actually use pattern matching as a technology to generate their responses. So it's of the utmost importance always for us to review that information, especially if we're going to take that information and repurpose it in any kind of a formal setting. A few tips and tricks here that we should include. Of course, no matter how good we are at prompting or how much context we provide, there could be moments where certain details just don't come to us in the moment. So over time, I've actually found several of these techniques to be very helpful in my prompting experience. Just to note a couple of these here, we can request that Copilot ask questions of us. Ask me 5 questions, Copilot, that would help improve your response to the request or the inquiry that I'm making. Among the options we have as well would be to maybe say, hey, Copilot, I'm looking for a response here. This may be a bit of a subjective situation, but provide me a couple different options here. Don't provide me just a single response based upon the criteria that I've included in my prompt. I think showing your work is also important as well, so we understand kind of how Copilot arrived at the response that it's providing us. A couple other helpful tips as well. Asking those clarifying questions where Copilot is actually prompting us for information. It's requesting requesting a response from us to then hopefully then guide its response to where we're intending to go. This last one, I think, in many cases can be helpful as well. While sometimes our prompts can be very detailed, or we're attempting to accomplish something relatively complex with Copilot, sometimes it helps us to kind of break things down. And so when we've got that sort of lofty or large or complicated goal, we can request that Copilot just kind of help us formulate a strategy of sorts, right? Kind of help me take this complex situation and break it down into smaller tasks with the idea that as I complete each one of those, I'm going to be that much more likely to achieve success. And finally, as well, we mentioned these earlier. Of course, the technology is changing so quick. If we're new to AI, or maybe we're not new to AI, I'm not new to AI. I'm certainly not new to Copilot, but I very regularly find myself in a situation where I think, wow, this is changing so quickly, or a feature that's here today is now there, or this new feature is included. Am I going to be able to even keep up with all of the changes and the capabilities that are happening with AI technology? We all feel this way. As we're sort of noting here on our misconceptions on the right, there is no boat. We all feel like we're always just trying to kind of catch up to the types of things that AI provides us. AI can do a lot of amazing things, but that real magic is somewhere in between what some people would say is useless, which I'm not sure I feel that way, or entirely amazing. AI can do some really incredible things for us, but like so many things in life, really, practice is really what's going to enable us to become familiar with what Copilot can do for us and really help us actualize the goals that we're seeking as we use Copilot. Finally, I did want to note that as an organization, Planet Technologies has helped so many organizations, so many folks launch Copilot with confidence. So if there's something that we can do for you, if there's questions that you have, I'm going to go ahead and drop an email address and our link here in our chat that we've got today. Please feel free to reach out if you've got any additional questions regarding the types of things that Copilot can do for you or your organization today. Again, Planet Technologies has worked on several of these projects. I'm very active in several Copilot learning programs, and I'm sure we kind of will continue to be as we head into the future. AI technologies in the workplace are here to stay. They are going to affect the way that our organizations operate and really the ways that we accomplish our tasks as users and as workers. So Planet Technologies would love to be a part of that and really help you achieve your overall goals and success working with Copilot and with AI. All right, we are just shy of the top of the hour here, but really want to thank everybody for being a part of our session today. I'm able to hang for a few minutes here, so if there's anybody that has any questions today, please feel free to drop them down to chat. Use that raise hand feature. Would love to address these here. We had a question come in. Is the session recorded and shared with the participants? And as my colleague Jason noted, yes, the session will be shared out for everybody that was a part of our session today. And again, thank you so much. Appreciate the kind note here, Dave. Thank you for being a part of our Copilot learning session today. Again, folks, any final thoughts or questions? Would love to address them if we do have anything. All right. On that note, again, my name is Edgar. I am a learning strategist with Planet Technologies. Really appreciate everyone's time and attention today. Have a great day today, and I hope to see you in a future learning session. Take care.